Are you or someone you know facing bankruptcy? Then keep watching because this show is important. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, host of Finances Personal. What exactly is a licensed insolvency trustee? And what is the difference between a trustee and other debtor credit counselors? With so many people losing their jobs around the world and small businesses are having to close their doors permanently due to COVID shutdowns, people are worried about how to cope and whether declaring bankruptcy is the answer. There are so many individuals drowning in debt and others turning to payday loans, but not understanding what compounded interest is. Today, I'm joined by Julie Wildman, licensed insolvency trustee and proposal administrator with Hoyes, Mikolos and Associates, Inc. Julie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I think this is really important because so many people have lost their jobs right now. And a lot of people have so much debt, they've no idea where to turn to. So I'm going to begin with my number one question. What is a licensed insolvency trustee?
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here, and that's a great place to start. So the formal answer is that a licensed insolvency trustee, or an LIT, we are federally regulated professionals who provide advice and services to individuals and businesses with debt problems. So in English, what that actually means is that we help people to make informed choices to deal with their financial difficulties, and meeting with a trustee like myself is always free.
So why would somebody need a trustee?
Okay, so if you're experiencing any kind of financial trouble, speaking with a trustee is a great place to start. So you've probably reviewed in your past episodes some signs that you're in financial trouble. And that would be things like you're only making minimum payments on your bills, you're borrowing from family and friends to make ends meet, you're missing bill payments, you have no real savings to fall back on, or you find that you're constantly stressed out and fighting with your significant other about debts. There's also some particularly stressful situations that drive people to see us, which would be if you've gotten court papers, if you've been sued because of a debt, or if your wages are being garnished. There's every situation is unique, of course, and there's different reasons that people end up in front of us. But we do like to remind them that there's only someone with qualifications and experience is going to be able to provide the tailored advice to your unique situation.
And I often tell people to go and seek a professional. That's why professionals are out there. A lot of people stay at home and they're stressed and they take on all this stress and anxiety alone, but you don't have to be alone because there are so many wonderful professionals out there that can help us with each situation. So what I want to ask is, what can a trustee do for me if I need one? What are the basics?
Okay, so a trustee, what's sort of unique about a trustee is that we're the only people that are authorized or permitted to file either a bankruptcy or consumer proposal in Canada. And those are ultimately the most powerful tools to deal with consumer debt available. But that doesn't mean that as soon as you speak to a trustee that you're going to be filing bankruptcy. And actually, in fact, the number of people that we meet with, the majority of them, we end up saying, no, you don't need to file bankruptcy. We recommend a different sort of debt relief strategy. If you don't actually need to go bankrupt, we're not going to try and sell you a service that you don't need. And because of that, there is a bit of a fear or a stigma against talking to a trustee. And unfortunately, we know that there are non-trustees out there that are aware of that, and they even sort of promote that fear through confusion and some misinformation sometimes.
That's why I have you here today, because, there's so many people that think, well, you know what, I'm just going to, I'll go bankrupt. It's okay. And then I'll just start from scratch. But it isn't that easy, is it?
It's not that simple, no. It's something that we'd have to really look at every unique situation and examine what the best option is going to be for that person.
So if somebody is looking for help, what's the difference between a trustee and other credit or debt counselors? Because, it gets very, very confusing and people don't know who to go to for what situation and what problem they do have. So maybe if you can just, break it down and let people know exactly who is used for what.
Sure. And, it is a very complicated, a confusing thing, because once you start Googling for debt solutions, you're going to get the targeted ads and you're going to get all sorts of stuff popping up. And the market is really flooded right now with debt advice businesses. It's people offering to help consumers with their excessive debt for a fee. Unfortunately, the vast majority of those companies are unlicensed and unregulated credit counselors or debt consultants. That's what they're sort of known as opposed to a licensed insolvency trustee. So if the only problem was, if they had low fees and they gave good advice, it wouldn't really be a problem. I'll say it that way. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of the time their fees tend to be high and their advice wrong. So that's why they pose a particular concern to the trustee community. And also just as far as their actual services go, their solutions for people's debt can tend to be more expensive than a solution that a trustee can offer them, and equally as damaging to their credit report. So they're not sort of the friendlier alternative that they like to market themselves as. If you think of it from a perspective, as you mentioned, there's lots of professionals out there. Mm-hmm. A professional, if you went to your accountant or your lawyer and you said, look, I'm having this debt problem, professionals tend to be able to recognize when they're not in their wheelhouse, so to speak. So they're able to say, I don't have the expertise to help you with that area, and I'm going to recommend that you go speak to a trustee. So unfortunately, the debt consultants and the credit counselors, they have almost the opposite approach because they have their niche area of debt management strategies that they do understand. They feel it gives them license to talk about bankruptcies and other alternatives that they're not really qualified to talk about. And that's where I'm just going to point out one more time. I know I said it already, but meeting with a trustee is free. So sometimes you're meeting with these debt consultants and you're paying a fee, and ultimately you're going to end up in front of a trustee anyway. And you really didn't have to pay the fee to get there. You could have just come to see me for free in the first place.
And you know what? I think that's really important because I was going to ask you, I think there's a concept. It's the same thing whether you're working with an investment advisor or any other professional. Everyone thinks, well, I can't afford them because their fees are too high. Yeah. And you just said, it's free.
It's free. And if we recognize in our meeting with you that what you need is credit counseling, we can absolutely send you to a well-qualified credit counselor that's not going to charge you an unfair fee. We've got lots of our own resources that we can send you to that we've sort of vetted to save you from the guys that are out there to make a buck off your back.
And when you're talking about financial literacy, there's always a shame, whether it's a romance scam, you're afraid to go out and tell the police because there's shame. You're in debt, there's shame. Like there's just so much shame when it comes to money, right?
True. Yep.
What happens when somebody goes to see a trustee? I mean, they're not going to be judged. They're going to be taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not here to find fault. My job is to help you make a plan to deal with your debts. I've been training for years to do that. I haven't gone through your life experience. I haven't, been there when you've lost your job or gone through the marriage breakup or had medical problems. Whatever combination of factors have caused you to have more debt than you can deal with. Sometimes life happens and that's just the way it goes. And just like a doctor's not going to judge you for a medical concern when you're sitting in their office, I'm not going to judge you for your financial situation.
I'm just wondering right now, because so many people have been hit so hard by COVID, have you had more people come to see you since, the beginning of 2020 till now, or has it just been the same?
So interestingly, right now, it's actually been quite quiet. We've had a bit of a lull, I would say, and that's because there's an awful lot of free support money floating around out there from the government. Banks aren't aggressively collecting right now, but we do expect that it's going to pick up again. And, if we're talking about how common it is for people to see a trustee, we've done the math to work out that it's actually 1 in 6 people over their lifetime will end up filing a insolvency. So that could be a proposal or a bankruptcy, but it is, a 1 in 6 incident that's going to happen. And it's,
that's a very large number.
It is. It really is. And money is one of those last taboos in society. It's unfortunate, like you said, the shame that surrounds it.
Mhm.
If you were to have a conversation with your extended family or friends group, odds are that someone in that group has already been through an insolvency process, either needs to or is about to do it.
Yeah.
So it's actually very common, and it's unfortunate that people don't talk about it more so that it would be less stigmatized and people could sort of support each other through the process better. Um, and 1 in 6 will file, but we meet with a lot more people that don't file as well. So we see all sorts of people.
So if I was to make an appointment with you and I wanted to see you, I mean, we all have to get certain paperwork or whatever it is before we come to see someone. So in order for me to prepare myself, because I believe that I need to come and see you, what do I need to do to prepare myself, paperwork, anything that will be helpful so that you can guide me through my situation?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So many people when they meet with me, they're so nervous and anxious, and I always say I'm not going to bite. We're not going to be scary. But what we do at our firm, Hoyes Michael, is we want to be specific in our advice. So we do ask you to bring some information with you or have it available. Usually specific, a list of your debts, a list of your assets, and maybe a pay stub, so we can talk about your monthly income. If you're booking to see a trustee and they don't ask you for specific information, that's something you could have all that information available, because if you don't have some specifics, the information or the meeting is not as productive. Talking in general terms is fine, but you can get a lot of that information off the websites. Where the value comes is where we can sit down and we can actually crunch the numbers with you and say, here's your option. This is the exact, dollar figure that we're talking about here. It's a much more valuable experience. And in terms of what to expect, we do a lot of listening. So when you first sit down, we don't talk at you. We're going to say, tell us your story.
Mhm.
We want to know why you're here and what's brought you here. And we're going to listen to your situation so we can understand it. And then we're going to give you your options. We're going to look at the numbers with you and give you your options. We're never going to start by saying, okay, well, you obviously need to go bankrupt, because we don't know. We don't know the situation until you tell us. So we don't use a cookie cutter approach. We really do listen to you, and it really is a personal experience.
Listening is extremely important. Asking questions are extremely important as well. I mean, that's how you get to the next level. But if somebody was to go onto Google, it all depends on the algorithm of their computer, depends on, who has paid the most for advertising. How do we
Yeah.
make sure that we don't go to a name that advertises so much and it's like, well, they've have the most advertising, so they've got to be the best? How do we protect ourselves and make sure that we go to a really good trustee that will actually put our interests first?
That's a good question, especially because when you boil it right down, what trustees do, if you need to file a bankruptcy or a proposal, if that is the right solution, they're sort of the same thing by trustee A, B, or C. So how do you pick which one to use?
Mhm.
And what it really comes down to is you need to find someone that you're comfortable working with. You're going to be working with this person on and off for several years, probably in a proposal especially. So you want to make sure that you can speak to them openly, you feel comfortable with them. And also you want to make sure that you know how they're going to support you through the process. So you want to know, am I going to be talking to my trustee, or am I going to be able to talk to a live person when I phone, or am I going to be getting answering services and I'm talking to salespeople? Or also at the back end of the process, like, is there someone that's going to be there to help me rebuild my credit at the end? Is there going to be support for me to help form better financial habits so that I don't end up here again?
It's really important. Something that you just said right now really resonated with me. It's a long-term relationship. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like you just go in and you file your papers and, off you go. It's a long-term relationship. So you have to build that relationship and like the person that you're dealing with. It's got to be
Exactly.
like a two-way relationship where, even though I have a really tough time, I want to come and see you because you're going to help me. And I'm not going to
Yeah.
be, thinking, oh, I have to go see Julie today.
Yeah. I hope no one everyone feels that way. Yeah, no, it really does. It's a very deeply personal thing you're talking about too. So you want to make sure you're comfortable with the person that's sitting across from you, be it on a desk or on a screen, because we're doing a lot of Zoom meetings right now. But still, you have to feel comfortable.
I want to switch it off to payday loans right now because I just did a payday loan show a couple of weeks ago. And
Okay.
it's amazing the amount of people that don't understand the compound interest part of it. You go on to a website and it says, for $100, they'll charge you 15. So you automatically think, oh, it's only 15%. It's, just a little bit more than HSD. It's not that bad. But it is that bad because
It
people
is that
don't
bad, yeah.
understand. So could you explain? It's not 15%. What is it?
It's closer to 390%. So I'm going to back up and tell you how I get there. But just in case someone didn't see that episode, just a payday loan basically is a short-term loan for a small amount of money. And you do that in exchange for post-dated check or a pre-authorized debit. So you're giving them access to your bank account to take their payments out, which is another issue. And usually people that are using payday loans to keep afloat, we find that they have visited more than one payday lender. So often people are getting more than one of these as they're going along. And in fact, we keep a lot of data that we like to look at in terms of what the clients that we see, what are they doing? What are the debts like? And we found that in 2020, I think it's 2 out of 5, about 38% of our clients had payday loan debt.
Wow,
so it is a
that's
pervasive issue. It's a lot of people. And typically our clients had about $6,500 worth of that debt between multiple loans. So, and on average, the average payday loan debt we see is around $1,300. So, it's not an insignificant amount of money, especially when you've got more than one. But to come back to your question about the interest part of it. So the payday loan interest, which is compound interest, as you mentioned, a simple way to explain how it works is, let's talk if you borrow $100. And as you mentioned, it's $15 in fees, which is the maximum that Ontario law allows. And so, of course, that's what they charge. So let's assume you're going to renew that loan every payday. So every 2 weeks, you're not going to take any more money, but you're going to pay off that original loan. So you don't actually ever get that $100 back. You're constantly just taking out the same $100 every time. If you get to the end of a year, 26 pay periods, you'll have paid $15 in fees 26 times. That's $390 on $100. So that's how we get to, it's actually 390% annualized interest. And if you look at the Criminal Code of Canada, any interest rate higher than 60% is actually deemed a criminal interest rate. But payday loans were exempted from that in 2007. So there we go.
Let's just step back and talk about even credit card compounded interest. I got married in 2019 and I had one more payment on the credit card, because you pay in installments. And It was about $13,000, the entire credit card that I had. And it basically told me that I could do a $10 minimum, per month.
Yeah.
But, I'm very much against debt. And I always tell everyone to pay everything off and never, ever, ever just pay the minimum, because on the statement, it said that if I just paid the minimum, it would take me 109 years to pay off $13,000. And people do not understand that whole compounded interest, and it'll kill you.
They brought that into the States a few years ago, the requirement that all US credit cards publish that. And when you see it on the Canadian, you don't see it on many Canadian credit cards, but I love it when it's on there because, like you said, it opens people's eyes. They look at that and they say, 100 years, I'm never going to pay this off. And sometimes that's just that little kick that they need to say, I've got a problem and I need to deal with this.
And I think it's important, but the other, the flip side to that is people don't look at their statements. So if they have a lot of debt, those statements are in a drawer, or they'll just look at it and pay whatever the minimum is, and not look at the fact that it's 109 years. And they don't look at their statements to see whether they're being charged for something that they actually didn't purchase or something that they actually canceled months ago, but it wasn't canceled.
Yeah.
So
Reviewing your statements is very important.
Oh,
I
it's
totally
huge.
agree.
So I'm just going to go back to payday loans again, because, it breaks my heart that the interest is compounded to 391%. What can someone do that is caught up in a payday loan cycle? How I know it's very difficult for them to get out of it, but what can they do to either try to get out of the cycle or absolutely get out of the cycle?
Yeah. So usually if you're visiting these payday loan places, you probably already know that you're in trouble. And you're looking to get away off, we call it the payday loan debt treadmill, because it really is just a cycle, as you mentioned. And a lot of people will find it's the final straw, because it's almost impossible to get out of, to be entirely honest with you, unless you come into a large lump sum of money that is allowing you to just pay them off. Very few people are actually able to get out of that cycle on their own. Because typically by the time you're in the payday lenders, it's because no other lenders are willing to lend to you anymore. And so that's sort of the lender of last resort. And if that's the situation that you're in, it's time to talk to somebody, a professional, about how to eliminate your debts, including the payday loans. You have to sort of sit back and recognize that your debts are not going to go away by themselves, and you can't afford to pay 390% interest. It just doesn't make sense. There's a certain point where it doesn't make sense to fight the fight anymore. You need to turn to someone for help, and that's what we're here for. So that's when it's time to find a trustee and come in and have a free consultation. It doesn't hurt. It's free. We're here to help and get you off that treadmill.
I always tell people, ask questions, seek out professionals and ask questions. Before we end this, any words of wisdom for anyone who's struggling with a lot of debt right now? Anyone who, debt causes a lot of stress, causes a lot of anxiety, causes a lot of loneliness. It's awful. It's an awful spiral for people. So do you have maybe some words of wisdom that can help anyone who is suffering from a lot of debt right now?
Sure. One of the biggest things is just knowing you're not alone. It is such a common thing, and people really beat themselves up and think, I'm stupid, I'm pathetic, how did I do this to myself? Don't beat yourself up. It's a common thing, 1 in 6 people, like I mentioned before, and there are people out there like myself that we're here to help you. Talk about it. Don't just sit at home and stew about it. Come in, call us, talk to us, and let's see if we can find a plan. The most empowering thing you can do is make a plan and start moving forward with that plan.
Those are brilliant words of wisdom. Julie, thank you so much for your time. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to our next episode, which will be multi-level marketing.
Me too.
Yeah. So
That's
take care until then. Take care
Thank
until
you very
then.
much.
All right.
Okay.
If you're in a financial bind and don't know where to turn, or if you're stuck in a payday loan cycle and don't know how to get out, contact a licensed insolvency trustee. They will help you find out which solution is the best one for you. And there are so many professionals out there that can help you, so you don't have to go through these stressful situations alone. Remember, there is always a solution. If you thought this video was helpful, please click like. Please read the disclaimer in my YouTube description, because it is very important. And please look out for my next episode, and remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll automatically get new video alerts. And follow me on Twitter at Naumovski. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.